Good evening, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Here for another PTSO update. Just a reminder, pour cette réunion, le langue va être en anglais, mais s'il y a des questions, posez des questions dans la langue de votre choix. And of course, if you are watching this after the fact, please don't ever hesitate to give us an email, or we now have a phone number that works and is actually plugged into a wall. So we're very excited about having some 1970s landline technology available to us now at the training center.
They work the best.
Yeah, yeah, it's remarkable. Anytime we plug it in, all of a sudden because we've been moving things around in the office, and anytime we plug it in, like within 5 minutes, it rings and someone is calling us. It's pretty amazing. Okay, getting started for this evening. So we'll do a quick run through. It's basically the same format that we've used before. I am gonna sort of run faster through some of the operational areas because we've got sort of six major questions that we've got to talk about at the end of this, and all based on questions that we've been getting over the last 3 months from our PTSOs. So we want to dedicate a little bit more time to that. Okay, so just a reminder, anytime you have any changes within the PTSO structure, if you could just let us know, it's very helpful so that we get those updates. Actually, for this meeting, I've been playing around with who gets invites, and we did a wide invite on this one. So anyone who we believe is currently in a PTSO role and for whom we have contact information given to us by that PTSO, they got an invite. And I mean, nothing of this is, top secret. It all gets published on YouTube anyway. So we're just happy to do that because we honestly think that the more people who have an opportunity to see what's going on, the more minds we have working on problems, the better solutions we're going to get. So just in particular, chief officials, whoever is running your HP program, and any of your coach developers, that's really important for us to know. And if you've got someone, and we're seeing this now in a few provinces, who's sort of directing events, we certainly see it in Quebec and Ontario. And if there's someone who is really taking responsibility for those in other provinces, we would love to hear about it. Okay, right into high performance. So it's a new year. And we started off pretty strong with some camps, but because of the start to the new year, I just want to remind everyone where to find this information. So we have a nationally identified list of athletes, and we've modified the format a little bit. We've now combined that into our overall athlete dashboard document just to keep everything in one place. And the identification for those athletes lasts for either 1 year or 2 years, depending on what level of categorization they have. Related to that, in that dashboard, we also have an update on who is carded for this current year and the eligibility, like the results that were eligible to gain that carding. That was for the entire 2025 season. So then those athletes then receive their carding through 2026. And we have just started up a new period of eligibility that runs through 2026 in order to see who will be carded in 2027. So it's important that everyone keeps their eyes on that, particularly athletes. And every time we have an event that athletes can go to and they can earn results that get them a certain level of priority within that selection criteria, we update that right away. So, looking at the end of 2025, we were just waiting for our national championships in Winnipeg to be completed to just fill in the last little bit of that selection process. And sort of by the end of November, everyone knew sort of who was going to be carded and at what level. And we had lots of time to answer questions and make sure everyone understood what was going on. And probably there were one or two little errors that we had made earlier in the season, but we were able to iron those out right away. So it didn't turn into delays in getting athletes their carding or getting athletes categorized properly going forward. And two other things to remind everyone about. So we do have an intern program for our athletes. So any athlete who is part of the national program and who is centralized in Montreal, we have basically a job program for them, and it's not a lot of work. It's 5 hours a week, but it's something in order to help get those athletes a little bit of walking around money in order to help them pay their bills. So we're happy to do it. If we're going to pay someone to do it, we want to pay those athletes to do it. So when you're looking at your membership packages or your membership cards or anything else that comes into you, chances are that's been handled by one of our national team athletes and was prepared by them and shipped out by them. And finally, the national team program for 2026, we had that originally published out in September, but we continue having updates to it as we get more information from organizing committees. And we're going to talk about some of those changes right now. So the NTP started with our 2026 camp. So we had a camp for our elite team and we had a camp for U19s, U17s, and our Youth Olympic Games selection. That led into the competition that we just completed in Spain at Boxam, where we had a silver medal and two bronze medals. So congratulations to the athletes who were able to achieve that. We are now about to send a team off to Thailand. That is the World Boxing Futures Cup, and it is being used as a selection event for the Youth Olympic Games. So an important one for us to go to. We also have a series of World Cups this year. We were hoping to have four on the schedule, but World Boxing has scheduled two plus a World Cup final. And the first one comes up in a little over a month in Brazil. And then we've got another one in 5 months-ish, 4 months-ish, over in China. So we're excited about that. The World Cup final is at the end of the season in November, and it's going to be in Uzbekistan. We also have a B tour, and this is where we have a significant change in what we had planned. So we were counting on and trusting that World Boxing would be able to put together a B tour, which they were calling the World Challenge Cup. And this would be a level lower than World Cups, but would still be a national team versus national team set of competitions. They, I think, quite rightly made the decision to prioritize their efforts in making sure we had a strong World Cup and other major games going on with Commonwealth Games and Continental Championships and stuff. And they have decided to put that World Challenge series on the back burner for now. And that's fine. We were ready for this change. So we identified a number of so World Open, so club run, but high quality and historically having an international field of events that we have strung together into a replacement for that World Challenge Series. So we've got four of those events. Boxam was the first of them. We had been planning on going to Finland. However, Finland has decided that they're only going to run one ring. And we were not able to get as many athletes there as we had hoped because they were restricting everyone's registration. So we pivoted and we're now going to Turkey instead of going to Finland. Then after that, we're going over to the Eindhoven tournament in Netherlands, and then following that, Copa Americana in Colombia. So that gives us four B level events, which is fantastic for us because most of those events will be able to register two per category if we feel that we have enough strength within the national team in order to justify it, which means more opportunities for Canadian athletes. And we're super happy about this. And some updates on other events. So U17, U19, U23 nationals, of course, in Calgary. Competition starts on the 18th and wraps up on the 21st. I was just on and looking at our registrations for For nationals, we're at about 270 registrations in total. We know there's still a few trickling in. And then, of course, that's being run at the same time as the Canada Cup. And I spent a significant portion of my time today with two international teams who are trying to get visas to come in. So we're hopeful that the Canadian government will be able to help out there. But it would be really nice to have them there. We also have got, as part of the Canada Cup, a para event going on, and we've also got our Indigenous novice tournament going on at the same time. So it's going to be quite an event. Um, and Commonwealth Games is coming up. It's right smack dab in the middle of the summer. We only have 6 registrations for that. That's a restriction that Team Canada has, the larger team, not strictly boxing. It's what we've got, even though there are 10 weight categories available. So that's going to be a hard decision to make about June 1st as to who we actually are going to register for that. And then our Continental Championships, that we finally had announced, and it is going to be in Mexico, just outside of Mexico City. So we're very excited about that because we don't have to go all that far. It's a relatively easy trip for us. And it is going to be towards the end of the season in October. And of course, we've got Elite Nationals, November 3rd to 8th in Cape Breton. Really looking forward to having everyone out there. And a heads up for everyone, we are moving from a 4-day format that we had in Winnipeg to a 5-day format for Cape Breton. And this is to address the large number of athletes who we had register. If you were in Winnipeg, you knew that the second day especially was quite long, with more than 20 bouts per session. And we want to make sure that we're giving everyone an opportunity to perform their best, whether they are athletes, coaches, or officials. So stretching it out to an extra day is a good choice because it means we don't need a second ring. It's a little cheaper for everyone, and based on the venue that we've got in Cape Breton, I think it's an appropriate choice. It's going to be a fantastic event, and certainly one that I would like to see as many people at as possible. The one event on here that we don't have a lot of information on is the U19 World Championships. Um, we understand that it is down to a selection of sort of between 3 different host nations, but we don't really know much more than that, other than it's very likely to be in Europe or sort of Central Europe. And as soon as we know, we will let everyone know. But given that we don't have a location and don't have dates, there's a lot up in the air there. The only thing I will remind everyone is that we've got a selection for that at our U17, U19, and U23 nationals. So just a reminder what the NTP actually looks like. So this is our spaghetti graph. It does get updated from time to time as we have to move blocks as we find out when things are. But there is also the long format of this, and I encourage you to take a look at both. It is extremely important that you read both. The cheat sheet with the spaghetti graph is nice because you can sort of see how things flow and see where decisions need to be made and where people go and sort of what the major opportunities are. But it is absolutely critical that you actually read the full criteria. And if anyone has any questions on that, please do not hesitate to get in touch with us. We're always happy to try to clarify anything that isn't clear, because it is a complicated thing, and with more feedback and more questions, we can do a better job year over year over year. Okay. One last high performance update. We got, for the first time ever, On the Podium made a public announcement of the ranking, the technical assessment ranking of sports in the summer program. And we were quite happy to see that boxing has moved up significantly. And I mean, I used to work at On the Podium, and one of my client sports was boxing. for that 8 years of time. And I do not recall a time that boxing had been sort of in the top half of the Olympic individual sport list. So to move up from sort of just gracing top half up to fifth in the ranking is significant. And I want to thank the coaches. I want to thank the board. I want to thank the athletes for all the amazing efforts that they're putting in, because it is making a big difference, and it is being noticed by people who play in this space. I will caution everyone that despite the fact that we are looking quite good on this ranking, the technical assessment ranking is not the same as funding. So swimming and athletics get, $4+ million of additional funding every year. Boxing, we went up from $450,000 up to $600,000, and that's a massive increase by percentage, right? And I would argue probably the largest increase that we've seen, not only this year, but maybe in the last couple of years. But I would not anticipate that we will be rocketing up to $4 million anytime soon. And I'm speculating a little bit here, so understand that. When I look at canoe kayak, they're probably doing $1.5 to 2 mil. Judo is probably doing $1.5 million. Tennis is only getting probably 100,000 to 200,000 because their high performance program is really based on pros, and their money goes into very specific projects only. Diving is probably a 2 mil program. Cycling is probably a 2 mil program. Rowing is probably a 2 mil program. And the reality is that boxing, while we are doing better, we need to continue doing better and be able to prove our ability to produce medals at multiple games over multiple years. So we will continue working in this way, but like I said, it was very nice to be recognized. So okay, moving on to membership updates. I will say for all the for all my pride in how we're doing on the high performance side on behalf of the organization, I'm also pretty happy with how we're doing with memberships. So we continue to be far ahead of where we were compared to 2025. And the number of memberships that we had to produce sort of immediately after the winter break, sort of over the end of December into the beginning of January, was significant and a little unexpected, and we are still sort of trying to catch our breath after that. So anyone who is waiting for membership materials, thank you for your patience, and we should get all that finally up to date now that the numbers are starting to slack off a little bit. I will attribute a lot of this increased membership sales earlier in the season to some bold decisions that some of our PTSOs made around asking members to have a membership for a period of 90 days, I think it was in Ontario, before they can compete. And that's for a new membership, right? If you're continuing your membership, there's no wait period. But what that did is it forced a lot of people to get their membership early, which is what they should be doing, right? I'll be candid. I've never worked in a sport where people buy their membership only when they feel like they need to. When you join up with swimming in a swim club, you pay for your membership on day one. When you join a track club, you pay for your membership on day one. And cross-country skiing, you pay for your membership on day one. And I like to think that we are starting to move in that direction, because it is one, it's good for risk management because everyone who's got a membership is covered under some degree of insurance, whether it's at the provincial level or at the club level, or if you're with a national program at the national level. But it also means that provinces, frankly, are getting their membership dues earlier, which then puts money in the bank so that you guys can run programming, And if you don't have any money to run programming, it's pretty hard to provide service to your members. So I think we're moving in the right direction here, and I would really like to see the provinces challenge the national office again next year with seeing just how many memberships you guys can sell early, because it is a wonderful problem for us to have to challenge ourselves with. So that said, I don't really think we're going to have another massive increase in total number of memberships year over year. I think we're probably targeting just over 10,000 again. And if we do beat over 10,000, that's great. But I think if we're targeting sort of 10,500, we're probably on track. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna dip into just one aspect of membership, and that's in our November meeting with the PTSO update. I mentioned that we were really doing poorly in our gender split. And we continue to be doing really poorly in our gender split. And if I draw your attention to the graph on the right-hand side, all the way at the right-hand side, that's our split for this year with 82.14% males and 17.71% females. I mean, we are doing a whole heck of a lot better than we were last year. And we were up literally 1% since our last meeting. So we know that we're getting better. But anytime we are less than 20% female participation, Sport Canada takes a strong interest in us. And given that during the COVID year, we were up to 31%, which has a lot to do with, I think, gender differences in how they value memberships and what they were able to do um, uh, outside of boxing as activities. Um, we can do much better, and I thank each of the provinces who've got female specific participation initiatives going right now. And if there's something that we can do to help you, please let us know. Okay, and some quick updates. I don't think any of these have really changed. Um, what I will highlight though is we are pushing our provinces to one, fully use Tracky as best you can, because that's the online membership system, because there's a whole lot you can do for yourselves through Tracky in with regards to stats and updating information and being able to provide reports and finding people and find if they've got current memberships or not. But there's something else we can be doing, and I really want to push everyone to get this. And so right now, when a membership is sold, 100% of those funds goes to the province. And then as membership materials are created, the national office then invoices the provinces where most of the work being done by provinces is being done by volunteers. And we are invoicing and having those volunteers have to send over money back to the national office. Tracky can work in such a way that the split in who gets what money is automatically taken care of. So if Chris Lindsay buys a membership to PEI for $100 for a competitive elite membership, 50 of those dollars can automatically go to PEI and just show up in their bank account, and $50 can automatically go to the NSO and automatically show up in the bank account with no one having to do any extra work. I think this makes sense, and I know Emily is breaching this topic with each of our PTSOs, but I just put it out there for everyone to think about a little bit because anything we can do in order to cut down overhead, I think is a really good thing. But we don't need to have a long discussion about it. I'm not interested, but I just put that out there. The reality is you guys need to approve that and we will continue pushing you to think about it, but we can't leverage that. The only other update that I think is really important is CCS, the Canadian Centre for Ethics in Sport, has changed its name to Sport Integrity Canada. And we had been looking at creating a national sort of banned member or suspended membership list. It turns out Sport Integrity Canada is also working on this for all sports. And we are going to follow their lead on this. So we are waiting for more guidance from them. Tracky is set up to be able to handle this and provide some information automatically to their database when they're ready. Because anytime we have a suspended member, for whatever reason, and memberships get suspended for all sorts of reasons, but if it's for a reason that Sport Integrity Canada, the ethics people, are interested in, they need to know because we don't want, say, a member from one sport to have their participation suspended, and then they just get a membership to another sport, and then they continue participating in in ethically questionable ways in that other sport. We don't want to set up other sports to deal with problems if we can avoid them. So that's something that they're working on. And they've got lawyers and all sorts of people thinking about how to do this in the best way possible to protect everyone involved. So we continue to have a great deal of faith that they will come up with a solution for us, and hopefully by the end of this calendar year. And this is now old news, I hope, for everyone, but we did have a price increase for 2026 that only went into effect January 1st. So any of the memberships that were sold before then were at the old price lists or price amounts. But we are happy to hear that we haven't got a whole lot of feedback one way or another on this. So either people didn't notice, or I think there's a recognition that for a number of categories, the amount that we were seeking on our end went down because specifically we don't provide programming in those areas. So I look hard at U15 and U13 level programming. We are taking $5 and $10 less out of each one of those memberships so that the provinces can have that dollar and do something with it for those participants. So. Okay, and not too much to updating coaching. We continue moving in the right direction. We've got great evaluators, great coaching instructors. I think the big change is we continue moving now with our comp dev program. We've got two fully trained evaluators who are now actively going out and doing evaluations. We've got another two on the way. And we're trying to regularize that activity of providing the comp dev content. And I know that a number of our provinces, I mean, we've got Patrick Denis from Quebec on, anytime he's got, a cadre of coaches who are ready to take that program, he just lets us know, and then Andreanne puts together programming in order to make it happen. So just want to thank everyone for the efforts there, especially the people who have been working specifically on the comp dev project. And then because we have been making some strides in comp dev, we just want to remind everyone that there is a level higher than comp dev. It is not boxing specific, but you can specialize in boxing and get your advanced coaching diploma. And I know a number of the national team coaches have been through this, a number of the provincial team coaches have been through this, and every year we get one or two new coaches who have just finished their comp dev and are saying, "Hey, what's the next step for me? I'm interested in continuing to learn and become a better coach. What can we do?" And we recommend that they go into this. The advanced coaching diploma is very much like a master's degree. It is not a I mean, there's a lot of hands-on in it, but it is not a weekender course. It is, in my mind, it's a full-timer course. So any coach who is full-time employed particularly if you're full-time employed in working with high performance athletes. I really think this is a great opportunity. So if anyone needs any information, email us and we'll send that out to you. And just a reminder, each province should have, if you don't, someone trained on how to operate the locker being the database of CAC coaching qualifications. And if you are interested in having someone trained on that, please get in touch with us, specifically Andrienne. She can make that happen for you. Because having the ability to look up coach qualifications, having the ability to enter in, when you have just run an instruction beginner course, like that goes a long way. We really encourage people to get trained on that. It would be wonderful if we could have 2 people per province who was trained on that at any given time, and potentially more if the demand is there for a province. Okay, moving on to officials updates. So we've continued to have the officials pathway posted to the website. Just a reminder, level 1, 2, and 3 are really a PTSO responsibility. Once we look at officials taking their level 4, and we had a bunch who got their level 4 in October at a course in Ontario. Um, the NSO, and through the National Officials Committee runs that program in order to get those updates done. And then we started off in Winnipeg having this referee and judge mentor role at a national championships, and I think the feedback was tremendous. I mean, we had Roland. It was Roland LeBay, who was doing it, and the feedback that we got from the RJs who were there was that they felt really well supported, and despite the busy schedule, felt like they were able to get feedback in order to improve. And that's what we want to do. Everyone should be always trying to improve, no matter whether they're an athlete, a coach, or an official. So we continue with that. We've now named RJ mentors for both Calgary and for Cape Breton, and we continue building out exactly how we're gonna operationalize that. And just a reminder, we've got our 2 rule books, so the International Rulebook and the Boxing Canada Rulebook are published on our website. They're available in the officials section and in the document and resource section. We continue working on the supervisor course. It continues dragging, we know, but we want to make sure that we've got a high quality product ready to go for everyone. We are starting to put officials qualifications into the locker. We expect we'll continue doing this over the next 6 months before it's really usable as a tool. But because there is a lot of crossover between officials and coaches, and specifically crossover in coach education with, free resources being available through the CAC on things like concussion management, safe sport, we really think that this is a pretty easy ask for people. So you will start to see more information directed to our officials around how to access the locker. Like more than 80% of them already are on the locker because they've done some sort of coaching education. But for the ones who aren't, we'll have some education on how to use that system. And like I said, by the end of this year, we hope to have every single official's qualifications all up to date in the locker system. And one last update on this, and this is something we just put out at the beginning of January, and that's our National Officials Plan. And this is trying to put down a list of all the opportunities for officiating that we have within Canada. And this is not sort of at a low level competition thing. This is sort of national competitions and up. But also, we're going to start doing training opportunities for officials. So, anytime we have a national level camp for the national team where we have sparring going on, we are going to invite a number of level 4 officials to those camps for those sparring days, because it's a great opportunity for those RJs to practice judging with the best athletes in Canada and to practice refereeing in the ring. And in discussions with both our national team coaches and personal team coaches who've been at the last couple of camps, I think we all agree that being able to have a properly trained referee there in order to manage the sparring a little bit will lighten the load on the coaches and let the coaches focus on coaching and not so much on having to be monitoring the direct health and safety of our athletes as they're sparring. So I think it's a great opportunity. The other thing that we're trying to put in there, and we haven't been so successful so far, is we're trying to update information around any international opportunities. So World Boxing controls all of their RJ assignments through their own system. But for any events that we go to as a national team where we are requested to bring an RJ with us, we will have a selection process that will be detailed in that national officials plan. So it's an annual document. Here are all the opportunities, high level courses, training camps for RJs that we're going to be running throughout the year. Okay, and looking at hosting, so we've done a few admittedly minor updates to the hosting section of the website. We do have a plan that sort of outlines what we're trying to do around hosting from 2025 through 2028. So we're getting on to halfway through that plan. We've also detailed a bunch of municipal funding sources. So if you're running provincial level events, even local level events, and are looking for potential funding through your municipality, we've got a bunch of contacts in there. We've received now a bunch of bids for our 2027 nationals. I admit I'm behind in trying to get those reviewed, but we continue trying to make that a priority, and we will hopefully have some information for those bidders about who's been successful in the next couple of weeks. We have also been trying to put together sort of a live database to support this new sport data competition management system. We put that together and we continue running into some server problems that we're trying with sport data to iron out. It's a bit of a process, but we're getting there. And a reminder that on hosting as well, we are finally tried in Winnipeg and it didn't work out, but we are going to in Calgary be running para categories. And we've got registrants, so I'm pretty excited about that. It is not going to be huge by any means, but it'll be a nice sort of novice opportunity to see what para boxing looks like, and educate our RJs and our coaches and our athletes about these opportunities for wheelchair athletes in the sport of boxing. Okay, and some minor changes on some of the things we've got here. So our national tournament series. So we, in the national hosting plan, had looked at what can we do in order to sort of raise the profile of Brampton Cup, Canada Cup, Quebec Open, and Nationals. And we continue doing that through providing registration information and putting selection activities at particular events. One of the things we had been hoping we would be able to do was modify our selection process for nationals based on the results that people were getting at Brampton and the Canada Cup and the Quebec Open. However, we weren't able to get that pushed through in time for this year. And based on the feedback that we've got, I'm not sure that all the PTSOs were 100% online with that. And the idea was going to be that instead of a guaranteed 2 per province per weight class, 2 start spots per province per weight class, we would go to 1 guaranteed start spot per weight class per province. And then the top point getters or medalists at each one of Brampton, the Canada Cup, and Quebec Open would then also get a start spot for nationals. And what we, I think, ran into pretty quickly was that the registration focus of some of these events is different than others. And so you have, say, Brampton, where there's a large number of novices competing. They were filling up their registration spots within hours, which is an amazing problem to have. But that meant that it was very difficult to guarantee that, a senior athlete in the elite category would even be able to register for Brampton. Um, and, and and if we didn't have open access to registration or couldn't guarantee open access to registration, then having, partial selection or ranking point selection at a particular event doesn't make much sense if some people never had the opportunity to register for it. So we continue thinking about this. We continue asking provinces for their feedback, and we will see where we're at. But we will not be doing this certainly for Cape Breton. Cape Breton will be a continued two per weight class per province. And we'll see if we look at making a change for 2027. I also suggest that this change would only be for elite nationals. This wouldn't be for U23, U17, U19 nationals. Okay. And provincial sanctioning information sharing. I want to thank the provinces that are sending in their sanction reports. It's not many of you, and we really do need this happening. We are getting increased pressure to be able to prove the number of injuries that we have are as low as we keep saying they are, and it's difficult to do that without data. So we encourage everyone to send in their sanction reports. Oh, and this is me doubling down on that. I don't think I need to. I think I just said enough about it, but it really is important that we get this information in. And until we get enough information in, we are not going to be able to put together a committee to do it, although I do know that the board is anxious to get that committee operational. A quick update on communication. So we continue pushing minor changes to the website. Our online store is still there. Press releases go out to anyone who's requested them. Instagram is our main focus on social media, and our push to video continues. And you'll see some changes on the website where we're highlighting. I mean, this meeting gets highlighted, but in each of our functional areas for coaching, officiating, and high performance, you will see right on those sections of the website that the last three, I think it's the last three update meeting videos are right there and available. So we continue pushing that. I want to highlight some issues that we've been having with the website. If we look at the top left graph, over the far left end of that graph, we've actually got a spike. The smallest spike actually on here was for the Olympics. And when we won the bronze medal, when Wyatt won the bronze medal at the Olympics, we had a spike in attention. And then the next spike after that is nationals in Sarnia. And then the next spike after that is sort of our Canada Cup time period. And then the next spike after that, massive spike, is Quebec Open and our youth U23, U19, 17 nationals. And then it gets a little messy. We get a big spike in November for nationals. And then we get this weird increase over December and into January. And that is bot attacks that we've been hitting. And when I look at our sort of most viewed pages, we're getting a whole lot of hits to our calendars to the point that it has shut down our calendars a number of times. And we're getting 404 requests, which is the bots are looking for specific information on our website that doesn't exist. And it has got so bad that it's been crashing our website and playing havoc with the server that we're operating it on. So If you happen to go to the website and you happen to see that it's either super slow or unavailable, um, it probably wouldn't hurt to give us a call, or send me an email, me specifically an email. But I probably already know about it, to be honest. If you happen to be someone who is running a bot farm trying to harvest events out of our calendars, if you could stop doing that, that'd be great. Um, just a reminder about our regular update meetings. So PTSO meetings, of course, you're in one right now. High performance updates we do every month. But the PTSO coach updates and officials updates we do every 3 months. So we rotate through those so that we get four per year. We now that we've figured out mostly, I think, what's been killing our calendar, we're gonna start repopulating it again. But it's gonna take a little bit of time in order to do that. And then please, if you have an opportunity, we still have most of our provincial websites with direct links to IBA and AIBA. And if we can get rid of those, I'd really appreciate it. Some notes from the board about governance stuff. We are working on rebuilding and refreshing a number of our committees. And just a reminder which operational committees we have. It's the Para Committee, Policy and Governance, Hall of Fame and Awards, National Officials Committee, Fundraising and RevGen, Indigenous Committee, and there's a Financial Oversight Committee. So if anyone is interested in being on one of those committees, or if anyone is interested in passing on information to people within their own province who might be interested, please go right ahead. We also put out a call for an athlete director. This is a full board of director position. We are trying to have two of them. We only had real interest from one individual who was appointed on an interim basis until the AGM that'll be coming up in December, this in 2026. But we have an extra spot there available right now. And if any former athletes are interested in, understand in being a full member of the board, um, but but testing the water in this position for the remainder of the 2026, please get in touch. And of course, we had our AGM since the last update meeting, and it was December 6th. So there's a link when you look at the presentation um, to the minutes of the AGM. It's also available, of course, on the website. And a highlight on Indigenous programming. So we have got our Indigenous committee running, and we put together a funding package for coach and officials development. So if we have a member who identifies as Indigenous, they're able to get some free coaching courses and officiating courses. We also have some direct programming going out to specific Indigenous clubs, and I'm pleased to announce, for the first time in one of these meetings anyway, the buckskin gloves is happening once again. It had been sort of forgotten about for a little while, but we've got a fantastic Indigenous committee out at the provincial level in BC who has been working on reviving this, and with the help of Manny Sobral, former national team member and for an Olympian, they've got this going again, and it is happening in 2 weeks. So it's February 20th, and we're really looking forward to that. And then we've got a model for Indigenous only novice competitions. And I referenced this before. We're starting our first one at the Canada Cup. So it's happening at the same time the Canada Cup is on, and we're really looking forward to having an opportunity for our new boxers from our Indigenous communities to get a safe, welcoming, and sort of low key first bout opportunity and get some bouts in books. So other quick stuff. So travel passes, the system seems to be working pretty well. We continue getting travel pass requests in. Hall of Fame, we've just now had board approval of our new Hall of Fame inductees. So we'll be doing those inductions, I believe, at the Quebec Open and at Nationals this year. And a reminder, if you have an event and you are interested in having it streamed, but not make any money off of it, we will send over a team in order to do that for you. Okay, some hot topics, and I didn't leave myself as much time as I'd hoped because you guys know I tend to ramble on about this stuff, but we've had a number of questions come in all sort of in the same vein. So I wanted to um, have those questions up on the board and be able to provide best answers. And if there are any questions, this is certainly an opportunity for some dialogue. So first question was, what is required for a member to spar? And the question came in the context of what level of membership. And the answer is you can spar as long as you have a level of membership where there is an annual medical that has been done. Okay, a bare bones recreational membership is not a sparring membership. A bare bones recreational membership is really about having kids come into the club and do boxing fitness and do boxing training, but non-sparring. Okay. If you're going to spar, annual medical is required. And a number of provinces have got a non-competitive elite membership or a non-competitive like U19 or U17 or U15 membership. So it's at a reduced price, but it includes the annual medical so that they can do sparring activity even if they're not interested in competing. And the other reason why I think provinces are moving in this direction is because that becomes a low bar for membership. And then if an athlete decides that they want to compete, then all they do is upgrade that membership and they pay the difference and we send them a book. So I think it's a great opportunity. And if your province isn't currently using something like that, call Emily. She'll be able to give you the details on how to make that happen. Then there was a question, what happens when another gym comes out to spar at a gym that is a member of the PTSO? And sorry, I should say another gym who is not a member of the provincial association or not an affiliated club. How do you figure out who should be sparring with who? And the simple answer is you if a member of Boxing Canada is going to spar, they should be sparring with someone else who also has a membership of Boxing Canada. Because at that point, we know that there's been an annual medical done, and we know that there is some chain of oversight over that individual so that we can assume that they have a certain level of competency and that they have a certain level of understanding of boxing. And if we know, or if we find out that sparring is going on, or if a province finds out that sparring is going on between non-members, they should be intervening. And that could certainly be a difficult intervention to figure out how to put into effect, but it should be happening. Okay. And if you have any concerns about that, you should let us know and we can help you out. And then the last bit of this question is sort of this, if you've got a pro boxer who's coming in to do some sparring with your athletes, which can be fantastic, the the answer is that that pro should become a member. And there is no prohibition for a pro to become a member of Boxing Canada. And we'll talk about that actually on the next slide. But they should just buy a membership. Okay. And then what happens if a gym that is a member of the PTSO goes sparring at a different gym who is not a member or not affiliated with Boxing Canada? So I'm taking Chris Lindsay's, amateur boxing club, and we're going to Andre Ann Parent's MMA club or Muay Thai club. Well, you shouldn't be doing it. I would encourage that club to become affiliated with us. And I know that's an easy thing to say and a less easy thing to make happen, but the reality is you're potentially running a lot of risk by doing that. So it should not be happening. Okay, and sort of related questions. Can pro boxers join Boxing Canada? And the answer is yes, with one exception on paper, which I don't think is actually being actively enforced right now, but when I do my research, I see it there. I believe that in Alberta, the PTSO bylaws prohibit this from happening. There's literally a clause in there saying that if you were a pro boxer, then you are not allowed to be a member. And the way it's written in there is it's a lifetime thing. And my suggestion is that if that's not being enforced, that it probably should be taken out of the bylaws. And if it is being enforced, I would suggest that we should revisit that. Although membership is a provincial responsibility, but I have strong feelings. And then related to the next one. So what rules exist concerning members moving between pro and Olympic style boxing? And this is a hot topic right now because it is happening. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. And we've got two members of the national team, Tamara Thibault and Wyatt Sanford, who are both members of our organization and current members of the national team who are engaged in pro boxing to a tune of about 6 bouts per year, maybe 4 to 6, let's say. And they're doing quite well, I'm happy to say. Um, but they continue to be full members of the national team. They continue to be members of their provincial association. And there is only one rule that governs the movement between pro boxing and Olympic style boxing. And that is that if a professional boxer, amateur, or professional in kickboxing, MMA, or any other combat sport, they can be a member of our organization, but they cannot spar or compete for 60 days from the date of that registration. And the interpretation that I am actively working on with our athletes who are moving back and forth is that based on what is written here, that they, as soon as they compete with us after 60 days, if they go and compete in pro again, that they either have to repurchase their provincial membership again, or they just need to take another 60 days medical off. So, and then province by province, you guys can figure out exactly how you're going to execute on this, but this is the only thing that we have written down in any of our documentation, and that's in our articles and rules document. So the link is there. It's on our website.
So, Chris, just for a quick question, and does that mean, yeah, it's not just after their registration, it's after their last pro bout or professional kickboxing or bout.
Yeah, so that's how we're interpreting
Yeah.
like the next pro bout that happens, right? So if I compete on January 1st, in a pro show, and then I immediately buy my boxing PEI membership right after that, then based on what's written here, I've got 60 days grace where I can't spar and I can't compete. And that really is about the background is it's a medical check, right? It's an opportunity for any injuries that I might have had at a pro show where Boxing Canada doesn't know what medical oversight exists. So we give 60 days so for any problems to show up and hopefully be well treated. And then at that point, then I'm good to go into an Olympic style competition. And if I go into an Olympic style competition, say March 1st, so 60 days, give or take, maybe March 3rd, if I do the math properly, um, uh, then I go and I do another pro show, then I'm going to take another 60 days after that. Okay. And my personal feeling is we probably shouldn't be making people repurchase their membership over again. I don't think we're going to make a whole lot of money on that if we do, right? But regardless, 60 days, then we allow them to compete again. And when we look at our peer nations, not just in the World Boxing sort of federation of nations, but also looking at England, Ireland, Australia, France, like comparable boxing nations. They either don't have this rule at all or they have a 30-day rule. And my personal feeling is I would love to get rid of this altogether. However, I also don't see a whole lot of need to get rid of it, even though I'm sure some national team athletes are probably having their ears burning right now. But the reality is, I don't see a lot of athletes bouncing back and forth. And a 60-day window of non-competition, I think provides a pretty significant hurdle for most people. And we're not, let's face it, we're not actively encouraging all of our national team athletes to go out and compete pro. But if the one thing that they can do really well in this world is punch people, and we can't give them an opportunity to make a little bit of money off of that, if it's not going to be a major detriment to them or to, the community, then I think we need to find ways to make it happen. So, um, I'm willing to engage in longer conversations if it turns out that I'm wrong on this. And if all of a sudden we see a bunch of people bouncing back and forth, then I think we'll need to rethink this a little bit. But like I said, this is the only rule that exists on paper right now. So copied directly over. Okay, and then there was a one related question, and this was quite an earnest question that came in from one of the provinces, and they were saying, if we've got someone who had been a pro at some point, and I think when we're talking about pro, we could also be talking about just had been in another combat sport, right? Another, and specifically like a striking sport. How do we manage them coming in as a member? I mean, if they've got a long pro record and they had a long amateur record before that, it's pretty easy. Okay, you do your 60 days and then you come in as a elite open boxer. But what if they never fought in Olympic style and they did one pro show like 15 years ago? How do they come in? And have they been training actively? Have they been sparring every week for the last 15 years? I mean, the it could be that, or it could be that they've done nothing. They've sat on a couch for the last 15 years and they finally rediscovered boxing and they want to get fit again. And it'd be nice to go and do a little local charity show or something. And that's the extent of what they want to do. How do we include them back into the boxing community in a way that is safe and fair and promotes participation? So I think the answer there is we want we want to use informed judgment, right? We want to take every case uh, and investigate as much as we possibly can in order to make a well-informed decision. And there are all sorts of cases where we have used our judgment to say that a novice boxer doesn't need to go and do 10 novice spouts. This one will be good for with 8, or this one will be good with 7, right? And there are probably some opportunities where we'd say, you know what, maybe you actually want to stay in novice a little longer, right? If we can make that happen, because you're just not ready for the open category yet. You're having fun doing what you're doing. We think you're safe staying in the novice category, but we're not ready to move you up right now, right? Um, so in the same way that we're making judgments there, I think we need to make judgments in this other way, right? And I am very much of the opinion that we should be erring on the side of caution. But at the same time, I don't think we should be using black and white rules to just limit people's participation. If they are interested in being part of our community and boxing and following our rules and being contributing members of clubs and provinces and and everything else, then we need to find a way. We should be able to find a way to allow that to happen. So this actually has come up now from three provinces, and I think the discussions that we've had have been really, you know, engage your chief official. Get them video of that athlete sparring, get them video of, or if you can, get in there in person. And if they look like they have the skill level that you anticipate would be good for them to move directly into open, then that's great. If you look at them and you think, wow, okay, they are not they're not capable of boxing in the open category, then you know, trust your judgment and monitor it. We all know that the novice category is can be challenging, especially when they are in the second half of their sort of novice category. 5 to 10 fights, they're getting better at defending themselves. They're understanding how to move around the ring. They're understanding how to impress themselves on their opponent more, right? And referees our referees are fantastic and they're constantly vigilant, but we know that in that particular type of participation, we need to be extra vigilant because things can get out of hand quickly if we're not on the ball. So I encourage the same sort of attentiveness in these situations. Okay, and last slide here, just sort of a critical list coming out of this meeting. So we will be continuing to push PTSOs around this payment splitting in Tracky because we do think it provides a lot of benefits to a lot of people and can reduce workloads. So if everyone can think about that and talk with Emily, that'd be great. Registration for U17, U19, U23 nationals. The early bird period is now passed. We're doing well on registrations. I know there's still a few, I know there's still a few wild cards coming in, but we can take care of those. And a reminder, fiscal year end is coming up March 31st. We finally got our books back up to snuff with audited financials. I'm very proud of that and that we finally got there. But we're about to finish up our year end in another, what, 6.5 weeks, 7 weeks. And if you as a PTSO have outstanding payments, we would really like to get those because it just makes our lives much easier when it comes to the audit. And then that committee revitalization. So if you've got people who you think might be good candidates for committee positions, these are operational committees. We would love to hear of them, about them, from them. You just pass on their name and we'll contact them, or you can suggest to them that they get in contact with us. Either one works for us, but we would really appreciate that. So, with that, if there are any questions, I've got some time. Not much, actually, as I see, like I really need to rehearse these things better. The lunch hour meetings are always shorter. You should go to those ones.
I have a quick question, Chris, not related to any of this once everybody's done there.